There is one question keeps coming to mind more and more.
At least 128 people and injured, dozens more.
The bombing over Gaza,
potentially devastating war in Ukraine.
22 people are dead.
How did we let it happen? What do we truly believe in? What are our values and standards? And in a world flooded with information, whom can we trust? Hi, I'm Mary Blinkova, a Russian woman who left my home country when war started. What I'm facing now is truly disheartening. Living in Russia opened up a whole new world for me. Having never been abroad before, the experience has been both overwhelming and eye-opening. The more I live in Europe, the more I feel the growing gap between those who stayed in Russia and those who left the country. And it often feels like we are seeing the world through different lenses or living in separate bubbles. Every time I talk with my friends or relatives about life here in Europe, I feel a kind of contempt towards me. There is a deep misunderstanding between us. I just wanted to bridge the gap between us, between those who stayed in Russia and those who left the country. And the easiest way to do so, I thought, was through YouTube. So I made a video on my Russian channel sharing my experiences from 2 years of living abroad. I talked about my observations as a Russian woman living overseas who loves engaging with people. But the response I got left me paralyzed for a while. Despite being careful with my words, knowing how sensitive some topics can be, people still heard what they wanted to hear. In psychology, it is called selective perception.
Things that interest people will attract more attention and therefore be better stored in memory, whereas things that do not interest people may not be noticed and memorized at all. It's a very normal phenomenon and helps us focus our attention on things that matter. But it's also logical that it may influence the judgment.
I was trying to share my experiences and observations living abroad, hoping to foster understanding and connection between people. Instead, many viewers seemed to zero in on things I never meant to highlight, reading their own interpretations into my words.
Your brain actually runs a series of biases that we could call filters, that filter out stuff that is not congruent with what you believe about yourself, the world, or the future, or how things work, or how you feel. Now, if you've got panic, anxiety, depression, stress problems, you're likely to be preferentially accessing and allowing information which is congruent with those problems and making it harder for disconfirming information to get in. See if you can find one thing today that is at odds with kind of what you believe about yourself, that disconfirms your kind of idea of who you are. See if you can sort of refresh, as Aldous Huxley said, refresh the doors to perception. See if you can see your biases in action.
So I decided to look at this situation through a different perspective, and what I discovered kind of surprised me. Usually I don't follow Russian bloggers since it doesn't interest me much. But to get a fuller perspective on the situation, I decided to watch a few videos from my fellow Russian YouTubers. And the comments I read were quite shocking. My first impression was how many people came back to Russia and found happiness there and found their peace and balance and the high standard of living. And the only regret many had is not to do it sooner. I also noticed a recurring pattern in the comments. Many people expressed strong beliefs that we Russians are a great nation or we are the chosen ones. And it's almost impossible to show them different perspectives because they perceive this as their reality. Can we blame them? No. They deeply believe in what they say. Can we say they are wrong? It's not that simple. Their experiences and the information they receive shape their reality, just as mine shapes my own. The truth is, I'm a bit of a bubble myself. So are you. Think about it. Anytime you surf the internet or scroll through social media, do you get the impression that people around are pretty similar to you? Algorithms feed you what you are interested in, which saves your time. But algorithms also shape your reality. They reinforce what you already believe, making it harder to accept different perspectives. For example, if you are a Democrat, your feed might be filled with the liberal content reinforcing your views, while a Republican might see conservative content supporting their beliefs. The more you see this information, the more you believe in it, and the harder it becomes to understand or accept other point of view. We often hear the word propaganda, but what does it actually mean? Propaganda means spreading certain ideas to make people believe something, often without telling the whole truth. It's like if someone only told you good things about their favorite food and ignored the bad things so you would like it too. Propaganda has been a constant presence throughout human history, evolving in form but always serving to influence public opinion. From ancient civilizations such as Rome, Egypt, and China, rulers used inscriptions, monuments, and official announcements to glorify their achievements and policies. During the Middle Ages and Renaissance, monarchs and religious authorities utilized art, literature, and public ceremonies to bolster their legitimacy and shape public perception. The 20th century saw propaganda's evolution with the rise of mass media. Governments and political entities during world wars heavily employed newspapers, radio, and later television to mobilize population and foster national cohesion. So propaganda always been existed, but why does it feel more powerful as never before? In the contemporary digital age, the internet and social media have further transformed the landscape of propaganda, making it easier and faster to disseminate information and misinformation to global audiences. And we all can feel it now. In the digital age, propaganda affects people's lives in powerful ways, especially by dividing communities and causing tension between different groups. With the internet, anyone can spread ideas quickly, whether they are true or not. This means even strange beliefs, like the idea that the Earth is flat, can find followers online. The problem is that it's becoming harder to tell what is true. The speed at which information travels can be overwhelming, and our brains are not used to processing so much information so quickly. And we often end up with only a surface understanding of things because we consume so much information without going deep into it, and this can lead to a huge misunderstanding. Should we halt progress and shut down the internet to stem the spread of ideas and beliefs? No, of course not. What we can do, though, is become conscious of what we consume. We need to be aware of different perspectives and views and avoid being judgmental, but instead be open-minded, open to ourselves and others. How? By communicating face-to-face in the real world, not just behind screens. It's easy to write something on the internet. You can be faceless, no picture, no name. But in real communication, with real energy and personal interaction, people wouldn't act the same way. Personally, I noticed significant shift in my perspective when I began delving deeper into learning a foreign language. Once I started learning English more authentically, I became genuinely curious about people, especially Americans, their perspectives, culture, and traditions. And the deeper I delved, the more I realized that both Russians and Americans hold stereotypes about each other. To understand another nationality, you must speak their mother tongue. Better mutual understanding emerges when we communicate in the same language. It's a gateway to breaking down stereotypes and fostering genuine connections. I've learned myself that real face-to-face conversations make a huge difference in understanding each other In today's digital world, online interactions can create misunderstandings and narrow views because people often surround themselves with similar opinions. But when we talk in person, we can see each other's expressions and hear the tone of voice, which helps us connect on a deeper level. Let's value these opportunities for personal interaction. They are essential for breaking down barriers, promoting unity, and embracing the diversity that enriches our world. We have the power to make the world a better place. Let's simply return to the basics and talk to each other without screens.